Morning, all. Back to Sanhedrin. This morning, I've had a little bit of uh, internet wobbles because of the storm. So if we all get cut off, stay there, and I'll try and reconnect. But at the moment, we seem okay. And we're going to start a new subject today, completely new subject. Uh, and how did we get to this subject? Well, we finished off last week the piece of Gemarah that was talking about the Sefer Torah of the king. If you remember, the king had to write two Sifrei Torah. So, on the back of that, as a sort of tangent to the writing of the king's Sefer Torah, the Gemarah goes off, and now it's a long subject. This will take us a good few weeks or even months to get through the whole of this very interesting subject. Goes over the page and quite a way down it. We're going to be talking about how a Sefer Torah is written on the back of the fact that the king has to write two. So let me share the Gemarah with you. It's right at the bottom of 21b. It's on page 127 in the Steinsaltz. And you should have it on the screen now. Yeah. Okay, so we've got our little symbol here that tells us we've got a new subject. Amar Mar Zutra. Mar Zutra said, V'itema Mar Ukva, and some say it wasn't Mar Zutra, it was a different chap called Mar Ukva. And they said, one of them at least, Batchila, in the first instance, Nitna Torah liYisrael. The Torah was given to Bnei Israel, Bichtav Ivri, Ulashon HaKodesh. Bichtav Ivri. Now, what does Ivri mean?
Hebrew.
Hebrew. So on the face of it, this statement says that the Torah was given in Hebrew, Ulashon HaKodesh. What is Lashon HaKodesh?
Holy tongue.
Hebrew.
The holy tongue, yeah. So if you just saw that statement, what would you understand by that?
It's written in two languages, two different types of Hebrew.
Two different types of Hebrew.
Maybe.
Ivri, Ktav Ivri. Ktav means the handwriting, right? Ktav means the handwriting. So it was given in Hebrew writing in the holy language. That's what that statement says. What would you understand by that if you just had that one statement?
It's written in Hebrew.
It was written in Hebrew. It was written in Hebrew. And that Hebrew is a holy language. That's what you would understand, I think, just from that statement alone. Agreed? Anybody want to disagree? No. Okay, so that's what you think it means. But when we read the next bit of Gemarah, we understand actually that that's not what it means at all. Chazra. It repeated itself, or how would you say Chazra? History repeated itself, if you like.
Returned. No.
Yeah, Lachzor means to return, but it doesn't really mean that. I suppose it does in a way. Anyway, you'll see what it means when I carry on. V'nitzna lahem, and it was given to them again, bimei Ezra, in the time of Ezra, biktav ashurit, ulashon arami. It was given to them again by Ezra in the handwriting of Ashur, in the Aramaic language. So what do you understand by that? It was a rewrite.
Well, I think
It was written in Aramaic.
is Ashurit and Aramaic different things?
Well, it would seem so because, oh, I see what you mean. Yes, they are. In the same way, the Ketav Ivri means a Hebrew script, and Ketav Ashurit means an Ashuric script, and we'll decide. We'll show you what those are in a minute. So the whole statement needs explanation. What it says is, in the first place, the Torah was given in an Ivri script in Hebrew, in the Holy Tongue. Ezra came along later and gave the Torah again to them, to the people, in an Ashurit script, i.e. a different script to the Hebrew script, and in Aramaic, and in a Aramaic language, which is not the same as Lashon HaKodesh. Now, Julia is shaking her head because she doesn't understand what's going on. Why is that, Julia? What's troubling you?
Oh no, please don't ask me. Well, we assume that the first two are the same, and I think you're saying that the second two aren't the same. So then we have to go back and find out whether the Hebrew script is the same as the Holy Tongue. So if there are four different...
Right, so we need to know what we're talking about here.
Johnny?
First, 1 second, Jackie, 1 second. First of all, let's just put some historical context on this. When it says Batachila, in the first place, the Torah was given, what are we talking about there?
Sinai.
Har Sinai, correct. And then what are we talking about when it says it was given to them again, Chazra? It was given to them again in the days of Ezra. Who was Ezra?
He came back from Babylon. He was one of the first people to come back from Babylon after the...
Correct. Ezra was one of the leaders of the people at the time of Shivat Zion. Shivat Zion, the return to Zion. Where have you heard that expression, Shivat Zion?
It was an organization, a Zionist organization, I think.
It would be a great name for a Zionist
It's
organization.
also in the Birkat Hamazon.
Yes, it is. It's the beginning of Birkat. Actually, technically, that's not true. It's not in Birkat Hamazon. It's in the introduction to Birkat Hamazon, which is the Shir HaMa'alot, which is in Tehillim. Shir HaMa'alot b'shuv Adonai et. Shivat Zion. Hayinu Kacholmim. Correct. Shivat Zion is in the introductory Tehillim that we say before Birkat Hamazon on Shabbat and Chag. And Shivat Zion means the return to Zion. And we're talking specifically the first return to Zion after the first exile, after the destruction of the first temple by Nebuchadnezzar. And it's important that you remember that. By Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel. The Jews were exiled to Bavel, and after 70 years, a small proportion of them, somewhere between 15 and 20%, returned to Zion. And that was known as Shivat Zion. One of the leaders of the people at the time of the Shivat Zion was Ezra. Ezra and Nehemiah were the two leaders. You can read all about it in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ruby is teaching on a Tuesday night in his Tanakh Shir. So what is Ezra's name, apart from Ezra? What is he known as?
Ezra the scribe.
Ezra the scribe, correct. And in Hebrew...
Hassofer. Can I just ask you a really very stupid question? And this is obviously brought in Jewish Judaism or something. I just thought that the whole of the Torah, everything was given on Har Sinai, and it was given orally. Okay, so presumably that was, I always assumed it was in Lashon HaKodesh. But But now we're talking about writing it down. I thought it was written down by Moshe, but obviously he had to think of in a script that he was using, presumably. I mean, is that a completely childish understanding of it?
It's not. Well, it's not a childish understanding of it. No, it's a fair understanding of it, given your Broughton Jewish education. Yeah.
Well, but I just don't understand, because we're talking about the language, and obviously it was oral in my understanding at the beginning.
But there was also a written at Har Sinai. There was a written Torah given.
Yes, yeah, and it was written down, I thought, by Moshe in a language.
Well, it was, because it was actually written by Kodesh Baruch Hu, because we're told v'katavti, and I will write. Well, that's talking about the Luchot, okay? The Luchot, the Ten Commandments. And yes, you're right. The Torah was, as the standard learning is that the Torah was dictated by Hashem to Moshe. Moshe wrote it down. That's talking about the written law, the 5 books of Moses.
Yeah.
Okay. And the oral law, obviously, was given orally. Otherwise, it won't be called oral law, right? And so there you have it. You've actually hit on the understanding, by mistake, you've hit on the understanding of that first part of Mazutra's statement. In the first instance, the Torah was given to Yisrael, biktav ivri. The bits that were written down were written down in a Hebrew script. Ulashon HaKodesh. And perhaps what that means is that the oral bit was given over in Hebrew, in the holy language. So that's a fair question, and it's a good explanation of what we've said so far.
There's only one problem, Johnny.
Yes.
If Moshe got it all on Mount Sinai and he wrote it down, then he would have known not to hit the rock, because he was
only the halachot, not the stories. The stories, you're right. The stories couldn't have been written down in the future, because he would have been party to the thing. That's absolutely
Johnny,
correct.
from what we know archaeologically, instead of sort of wanting to do it metaphorically and in a meaning-laden way, wouldn't it have most likely been a cuneiform?
Okay, we're coming there. We're coming. This whole Gemarah, Sharon, is about that.
All right.
I'm sorry. Can I ask? Surely Moshe, his first language would have been Egyptian.
Exactly.
But God would have taught him Ivrit on the Mount Sinai.
Maybe that is why the Gemarah goes out of its way to say that the Torah was given in Lashon Kodesh. Let's carry on, and you'll see it all becomes a bit clearer as we go on. So I'm just.
God would have spoken to Moshe in Lashon Kodesh, I would have thought.
I would have thought so. Yes, I would have thought so too.
Not Egyptian.
Not Egyptian, I doubt that. Ezra was one of the leaders, and he's known as Ezra HaSofer, Ezra the scribe. And this Gemarah is going to teach us why he's known as Ezra the scribe. Okay, because let's have a look and see what this says. Chazra v'nitna lahem b'mei Ezra. The Torah was given again in a different handwriting. B'ktav Ashurit. Excuse me. Instead of the Ktav Ivri, instead of the Hebrew script, it was given in Ashurit script. Ulashon Arami. And the oral law would then have been given in Aramaic, because that was the language of the time. Okay? No point me speaking to you in Latin if you don't understand Latin, right? We've got to speak in English. That's why we have these shiurim in English. No point doing them in any other language, because we don't speak any other language well enough to understand it. So what went on at the time of Ezra was nothing short of a reform resolution. What went on in later years, at a later reform revolution, was that the Torah was translated into which language?
Greek.
Greek. And that is known as the
Pentateuch.
No, the Pentateuch actually is the name of the 5 books of Moses.
The Septuagint.
The Septuagint. Yeah, I don't know how it's pronounced in American. I think in English we call it the Septuagint in British English. How did you say it, Sharon?
Septuagint. But we have different emphasis on different syllables, so don't worry about language. We have enough with all of these letters to worry about, rather than British versus Seattle. Or Manchester versus Seattle, because you speak Mancunian English and I speak Seattle English.
Yeah, absolutely.
Neither of them standard.
There is a controversy or a controversy as to where you put the emphasis. You're right. Okay, so it's known as the Septuagint. And why is it known as the Septuagint?
7.
There's 7 in there somewhere, isn't there?
And 7 people check it over and read it.
Close.
Oh, so
the Greeks made 70 elders translate the Torah into Greek in separate rooms, as it were, in separate places. And according to the Gemarah, a miracle occurred, and all 70 elders wrote exactly the same translation, including all the bits that they changed so that they wouldn't offend the Greeks so much. And that's called the Septuagint. Now, that was translated into Greek, and that was a big deal, right? Later on, Christians translated it all into Latin, and later on, we all translated it into our own languages, okay? But that was pretty revolutionary, right? What do we daven in? In shul, we daven in Hebrew. The Reform movement have many of their prayers in English, and that's considered a revolution. Ezra changed the entire script of the Torah.
Hold it. It actually says it implies there that the Torah was given by Hashem again in the time of Ezra, according to the Talmud.
Yes, correct. And we'll come to that. We'll come to it very shortly, actually, Michael. So we need to know what we're talking about here. What is this Ketav Ivri and what is the Ketav Ashurit? What is the Hebrew script and what is the Ashurit script? Now, has anybody seen the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Shrine of the Book over at the Israel Museum? Yeah, Jeffrey, what does it look like? Apart from old.
I couldn't read it.
No, you couldn't read it. Why couldn't you read it?
It looked like it could have been Hebrew, but to me it wasn't.
Didn't look like Hebrew letters, did it?
No.
It looked like what Sharon just said earlier on, cuneiform letters. Now, on the screen, you can see here 2 columns. And that is a very useful chart. But I'm going to show you I sent you out a better chart. Those of you who are on the group, I hope you're all on the Gemarah group, the Leon Bennett Sanhedrin Gemarah group. I sent you out
By the way, I got something from the Israel Museum that they are having one of their rare full displays of the full Isaiah scroll coming up. So take a look, everybody, because you may want to go get a gander. They don't take it out all the time.
That is very worthwhile having a look at that. It's the earliest example of a full book of Tanakh. Now then, let me share this with you in 1 second. Where have you gone? There you are. No, that's not what I want. Hang on a minute, please. There we go. Right, have a look at that. I will make it bigger. There we go. You see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Ketav Ivri and Ketav Ashurit. Now then, what this lovely chart does is it compares Ketav Ivri, which they have described as ancient Hebrew, with Ashurit, which is the here the late ancient Hebrew of Ezra. Okay, now you can see the letters here. The ones that we're familiar with. Let's go over here. This is in modern Hebrew in orange over here. Greek in green and Latin in blue. Okay, Aleph. Pretty similar in the late ancient Hebrew, which is Ezra. For late over here, this is Ezra's Hebrew. It's called Ashurit script. As we get earlier, it starts to become less obvious to us that that's an Aleph, etc. Bet, again, pretty similar, not very similar, not very similar at all. Gimel, etc. The same. You can see that if we were to just go down this column here, you would know which pretty much what those letters were, right? If I was to just point out any of them, that one there you'd know was an ayin, that one there you'd know was a tzaddik, etc. They look pretty much similar to the block script that we are used to today. And that is the script that Ezra introduced at the time of the rebuilding of the Second Temple. So we are talking around about 500 BCE. Okay, we're talking around about 500 BCE is what on this chart is called late ancient Hebrew. Early ancient Hebrew is Ketav Ivri, the original Ketav. The Torah would have been given and written, the written Torah would have been written, according to the Gemarah, in this type of script. It morphed a little bit later on into this one, but they're pretty similar, as you can see. There's a lot of similarities here between late, early, and middle. But this type of script is what the Gemarah is telling us that the original Torah was written in at Har Sinai. And only
Johnny,
later. Now,
I have a question.
Yes, Sharon.
But finish your sentence. I don't know how to raise my hand, so just come to me when you're done.
The later, only later. Now let's work it out. How long later was Ezra after the Torah was given? Well, we can work it out, can't we? Torah was given in Sinai. Then they went into the land. We had 350 or so years of judges. And then we had Shaul, and David was about 1000 BCE. So we're talking about another 500 years on from that. So we're talking about 1000 years later or so. That might not be absolutely accurate, but Ezra is about 1000 years after the giving of the Torah. So about 1000 years later, Ezra has a complete revolution and changes the script. Can you imagine if somebody today came along and said, we have to change the script of the Sefer Torah? It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. So it's a very interesting subject, this, which is why this Gemarah is getting so involved in it. So Ezra changed the script from from Ivri to Ashurit. Now, I want to just show you a few little examples. Let me go back to something else. Here. Can you see the screen now?
Yep.
Can you?
Yeah. It's very small.
It's small. Okay, let me make it bigger in a minute. That's not the one. I don't think I want that one. What do I want? There, this is the one I want. How about that? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a very ancient Hebrew scroll. Can you make anything out of that? I can't. Can't really read anything. Don't know where it's
the right
from.
way up. It looks like it's upside down.
I think that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like it's upside down, doesn't it? But it's not. How do I know it's not? Because if you look at this letter over here, see that one that looks like a backward tick? Yeah?
Yeah.
See that one that's a backward tick. If I take you back to that, there's our backward tick there. Can you see it? Yeah? Lamed.
No.
So it does look like it's upside down, but it isn't. You can see from there, there's quite a few of them. Can you see? So I do think it's the right way up, but it looks like
there's no
it's
reason why the line should be on the bottom instead of at the top. I mean, it's clear that that's, yeah.
Why shouldn't it be? We write on the line, but why should it be that we write on the line? Could just as well be that the line is there to show you where the top of the word should be. When I was a kid, still true today, but when I was a kid, I had absolutely appalling handwriting. And I well remember, well into my junior school days, having to write on baby paper with 2 lines, being made to write. And I remember having to write out my presentations that I was giving to the teacher 2 or 3 or 4 times before they'd even read it, because it was so bad.
2 lines. I remember that.
Yeah, you remember writing between 2 lines? So just because we write today on top of the line doesn't mean that then they could easily use the line for the top of the word, the top of the letter. So it does look like it's upside down to us, but it isn't. Anyway, the point is,
Johnny, I still have 2 questions, so please come to me when you can.
I will in a sec. There's another example, right? That just looks like a load of scribble to me, but that apparently is some ancient Hebrew writing, and there's some more of it. So these clever archaeologists, there's another lamed, by the way. Look at that. See that?
Yes.
And another one there. It's the only letter I can recognize without having the chart in front of me. But anyway, these clever archaeologists know what all of these things say. So that's the difference between, let me just go back to that, and then we'll ask Sharon. That's the difference between our Ivri and our Ashurit. Okay, and that was the revolution of Ezra around about 500 or so BCE. Yes, Sharon, questions?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is this. I'm fascinated with this because we've been to some exhibits at the Israel Museum about the evolution of language and the evolution of the alphabet and the universalization of it. But I've never asked this question. The early column to the farthest left, how does that compare to the ancient Babylonian? Assuming that Abraham and our whole people's concept came from early Mesopotamia, Babylonia. Did we bring some of this with us to Canaan and so forth? And then when Ezra did his evolution to the much more contemporary looking script, it's really on its way to the contemporary script. Did he then bring back with him a more modern and evolved Babylonian approach to the alphabet that we had, that had spent 500 years in isolation in Canaan, so that he sort of updated it? And like the Hammurabi Code, what was it written in? How does this all relate to our whole history from Abraham all the way through to the Gemarah?
Okay, so the very simple answer to those questions is yes and yes. So the ancient Hebrew script, the Ivri script, it certainly bears resemblance to the ancient cuneiform type of script. No question that there is a similarity. And the Ashurit script of Ezra bears a very similar resemblance to the script of Assyria, which is why it's called Ashurit, because it looks like it. So you're right. As things evolve, so did the shape of the letters. Now, we shouldn't be surprised about this, because when you look at Michael's shaking his head vigorously. I'll come to you in a minute, Michael. I can see you're not happy. You've got a knitted brow. We'll try and unknit it for you in a minute. But when you look at an English document, right? I don't know, something, a manuscript from the Middle Ages, the letters are very different to Comic Sans font, or or Times New Roman, or whatever it is that you particularly like to type in, Arial, or each of these fonts. You can look at a document and you can look at the way it's written, and you can see when it was written. I have in my possession a very, very precious exercise book, which was written in 1931 by Jeffrey's mum when she was in third year, which is age 13. And I will, Blinada, take a photograph of a page of this and put it on our group to show you her beautiful handwriting, age 13. Copper plate, they used to call it, right? Nobody writes like this today, and that is less than 100 years ago. It's not much less than 100 years ago. It's 95 years ago. Actually, one of the essays in that is a fascinating essay, because she was asked to write an essay of what life would be like in the year 2000. And she wrote it in 1931. Absolutely fascinating. But anyway, I digress. But the writing, you can look at that exercise book and you would know that that was written in the first part of the 20th century. You could look at a manuscript of Shakespeare, let's say, and you'd know that that was written in the 16th century. You would be able to look at the Declaration of Independence of America and know that it was written in the 18th century.
What was Megillat Esther written in, Johnny?
Megillat Esther, okay, very interesting. Megillat Esther is written in Hebrew, and it would have probably been written, Megillat Esther would have probably been written in early Ivri script, because the Megillat Esther, although it's around about the same time as Ezra, it's a bit before Ezra, and Ezra would not yet have brought in the Ashurit script. Now, something just flashed through my mind then. So what was I going to do? I don't remember. But so what I'm saying is, you can the script is definitely influenced, to answer Sharon's question. The script is influenced by everyone around us and the times that are going on. So for sure, Ivri has similarities to cuneiform, and certainly Ashurit has similarities to the Ashur script. Yes, Michael.
So hold it. If the Torah was written by Moshe, it would have been in the early script. So therefore, isn't it the other way round, that the Babylonians or whoever took it over or did it similar to the Jews rather than the other way round? If that's the case,
only if the Torah is the first example of writing, which it isn't. There was writing.
But you said the Torah was written. The 5 books were written down. So yes, they would have been written down in early, presumably.
Correct. And that early is similar to the cuneiform of the time that other peoples were using.
Right. Okay.
Right. You would be right to say it was the other way around if the Torah was the first thing ever to be written down, but it wasn't. We have examples of writings on bits of pottery and what have you from before the Torah. And so the early Ivri script is similar to cuneiform. By the time it comes to Ezra, the most popular script of the time was Ashur, because the Assyrians were one of the strongest nations at that time. So their script would have been more familiar than the ancient script, in the same way as today our Latin letters over here on the right-hand side are more familiar to us than the flowery manuscripts of the Middle Ages. Okay, so things evolve, language evolves, letters evolve, styles evolve. Look at cars, right? Look at the American cars of the 1950s and 60s, those enormous things with huge, long things with an enormous boot, and why, you need a taxi to get from one end of the car to the other, right? That you see one of those cars, you know when that's from. And even in Britain, you look at the 70s cars and the 80s cars, it's very easy to see a style. And you see clothing as well is the same. And there's no difference in lettering. It's a style. And so styles change, but the big change came with Ezra. Okay.
May I just share something about the whole evolution of the alphabet?
Please do.
At the exhibit at the Israel Museum, it was centered around the concept, the hypothesis, which is, nobody knows for sure, based on a stone found at Timnah, where the Egyptians had their mining going on, their copper mining, and they brought people from various different cultures and languages. And this was a stone that had 3 or 4 sides and different languages on it, and showed them trying to evolve an alphabet, because the languages were different, but with an alphabet, you can transliterate any language into sounds of these letters. And it had some 25 or 28 letters that they used in order to be able to transliterate from one language to another the sounds, and therefore write down and communicate. And so that, I guess, would come in the early stage when there was trying to reach a common representation for the various sounds that make up almost every language.
Can you remember what period this was from?
It must have been very early, because it's when Egypt ruled all the way from Syria, down across. It was the huge Egyptian influence.
Right. So we're talking.
So it probably would be, I don't know if it's before or after when we assume the Torah was revealed. I don't know the answer.
It would have been around about that time, wouldn't it? Or just before, because of course we were slaves to that Egyptian empire.
And the hypothesis was that we then became the people of the alphabet, and from that became the people of the book.
Very interesting, fascinating. I'm very fascinated by language all together.
Obviously, we are too.
which is why this Gemarah is really interesting to me. I love language, which is why I'm always saying to you, where have you heard that word before? Because I think language is really beautiful and important. And when language is used well, it gives me great pleasure, which is why I love to read, for example, the writings of Rabbi Sachs, who writes so absolutely beautifully. Sometimes I just read the paragraph over again just to get the pleasure of reading it. Anyway, so let's have a look back at the Gemarah. Where did we come from? So now we know what we're talking about a little bit more. Let's read it again. Batchila, in the first place, i.e. at Har Sinai, Nitna Torah Yisrael b'ktav Ivri. It was written in the Ivri script, this left-hand side of the columns here, right? These funny-looking things that we don't really recognize. That's what it was written in, Ulashon HaKodesh, and the sacred tongue. And I think that Avril Links is correct, that when it's here, it's talking about the oral law being given in Lashon HaKodesh. Chazra, it repeated itself, the nitna lahem, and it was given to them. It doesn't say that it was given to them by Hashem, but the implication is that because it uses the same word. Bimei Ezra, in the days of Ezra, biktav ashurit, in the this language, these letters here, the square ashurit languages, letters, ulashon arami, and in the vernacular. Okay. No point giving an oral law in Chinese if you don't understand Chinese, right? How many times have you opened up your instruction manual for your newly delivered rubbish from Temu and find that all the instructions are in Chinese? Doesn't help you at all. You can't. The letters don't mean anything. So no point in having the oral law in these letters or in Hebrew if nobody understands Hebrew. If everyone speaks Aramaic, then the oral law is going to be in Aramaic. It's the equivalent of Art Scroll. Art Scroll translated it all into English for us. Very nice. Okay, now I just want to go, since we're talking about language, I just want to look at this word here. Ivri, Hebrew. What is the origin, please, of that word?
From Aver, wasn't it?
Ava, from coming across the Jordan. No?
Very good. Not across the Jordan.
Yeah.
You cross a river, you're right. Across what river?
The Mesopotamian rivers.
The Euphrates. Yeah, the Euphrates. And who was called the Ivri?
Abraham.
Okay, there it is for you in chapter 14 of Bereshit, Parashat Lech Lecha. There we go. Where is it? Here we go. Verse 13, Jeffrey, on the screen.
And the fugitive came, and he told Abram the Hebrew, and he was living in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol, and the brother of Aner, who were Abram's confederates.
Okay, stop there. Vayaged le'Avram ha'Ivri. Avram is known as the Ivri, translated here as the Hebrew, which is not a translation at all. It's just an anglicization of the word Ivri. Hebrew. Okay, Rashi helps us out. That's why I put the Rashi on for you. And if it's big enough for you to read, Jeffrey, the Rashi over here.
The Hebrew, so-called because he came from the other side. Ma'aver, is it?
Yeah, Me'aver. Yeah, Me'aver.
Me'aver of the Euphrates River.
There we go. That's why he's called an Ivri, because he came from the other side. Midrash tells us that he also is called the Ivri, the one from the other side, because the whole world at that time, or almost the whole world, practiced polytheism, had many gods, and he wasn't the only one, but he was the one that stood against that, as it were, on the other side of the divide with monotheism. So he's called the Ivri because he came from Ava Nahar over the river Euphrates, and he was what we would call today a Dafkanik. He stood against everybody else's views. Right, so that's why it's called Ivri. Let's go back to the Gemarah.
Have you seen anywhere that it also meant blue eyes? Because I believe James Michener in his book, The Source, put that as one of the sources of Abraham's other name.
Because he had blue eyes.
Yes, the people, meaning, I guess, Caucasians or something. It was opposed to the Africans and the Egyptians who were populating the area.
Right.
I don't know. I just remember that from The Source and thinking, that's interesting.
I have to say, The Source is one of my favorite books.
But it's very old and it's pre-contemporary archaeology, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that bit in The Source, and I've read The Source cover to cover, and it's a lot of pages between cover and cover, over 1,000. And I've read it 3 times. I don't remember that bit. I'm sure you're right that it's there. I don't remember that bit. I do recommend.
Don't be sure.
I do recommend The Source by James Michener to anybody who hasn't yet read it. It is brilliant. It gives a most superbly researched history of humanity. It's a little bit heretical if you're an Orthodox Jew, but you can overcome that by saying it's a novel if you want. But it's brilliant, and I recommend it. Okay, so that's where we have got to so far. In the first place, the Torah was given in these letters, and Ezra came along and changed it all. And carry on in the Gemarah. Beiraru lahen li Yisrael. Ktav Ashurit Ulashon HaKodesh. And it seems that what happened here was a little bit of mix and match, because the Jews chose the Ashurit script. I think it evolved, and therefore they chose it sort of by default. I don't think they sort of stood up and said, let's have a vote whether we want our Torah in old script or new script. It just evolved, and effectively they chose the Ashurit script, and they also chose Lashon HaKodesh. They chose to keep the Hebrew tongue as opposed to the ancient Hebrew letters. They chose to keep the Hebrew tongue. Okay.
What would therefore stop us today changing things and writing it, say, in Yiddish, a Torah in Yiddish on the scrolls properly? Because if they can change the letters previously in Ezra time, surely we can change the letters again to put the Yiddish letters so basically it looks like English, but it's actually Hebrew.
That's a very good question, Michael. What do you think the answer is?
That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I think the answer is it depends which printing you're reading, because I've seen Yiddish written in Hebrew.
Hebrew letters, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's to stop somebody coming along? What's to stop somebody coming along, says Michael, and say, well, Hebrew is no longer the way we do things. Let's go back before the early 20th century, when Hebrew started to be a language again, right? Because I don't think it would wash today to say that Hebrew isn't a language. But let's go back to, I don't know, a couple hundred years, right? And say, we're not very familiar with all of this as ordinary folk. Let's change it into Yiddish. That's the vernacular. That's the Aramaic of the day. Or if you're in the Sephardi countries, Ladino, let's change it. That's what Ezra did. Fair question. What's the answer?
Why can't? Is there any reason why it wouldn't be holy? But if you did it on the proper materials and everything else and wrote it, is written it on the holy on proper paper, not paper, whatever you like to call it, parchment.
Yeah.
Would it be any less holy than a Torah that's written in Hebrew?
Okay, Julia, what's the answer?
Well, I was just going to say that looking at this, it was given to them again. In other words, it was given by Hashem.
Okay, via
Ezra.
Via Ezra. That's
just deciding to do it.
That's the key. That's the key, Michael. The key, Michael, is that this was done by Ezra. Ezra was a prophet. Ezra was an agent of Hashem. And our belief is that these changes that Ezra made were with the approval of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, if somebody were to come along and say, I'm a prophet, I have the approval of HaKadosh Baruch Hu appeared to me in a dream and said, change the Torah to Yiddish, then if that was believed, then the answer to your question will be yes.
So if I go back to my original thing, when I some time ago, when I said the Torah was handed down again to Ezra by Hashem,
effectively that is what happened. Yeah. Effectively, that's what happened, and then it became entrenched as the Ktav Ashurit was the accepted script that was given with all the tagging, all the little crowns and the little bits and pieces that are on there. The Sofer Stam. I just, by the way, 2 days ago, as you know, my son Dan's here from Australia, and he wanted to have an opportunity to have his tefillin checked while he was here. So I took him to a wonderful man in Netanya called Rav Herman. I can't remember his first name now. He has this little office and little show place and workplace where he works in the basement of a block of flats on Baruch Ram Street, overlooking the sea in Netanya. Anybody know where Baruch Ram Street is? Right next to the Carmel Hotel. And in the last building on Baruch Ram Street, underneath go through the car park, is his office. He's a wonderful guy, a really lovely guy. David Bernstein introduced me to him. So anyway, he took these. Dan took his tefillin in, and Dan's tefillin were written by Mechel Hafner. Some of you will know Mechel Hafner. He is a dentist in Manchester. He's my age. He starts work early and finishes early and spends the rest of the day writing Safrus. And he wrote Dan's tefillin. Long story behind it, but I'll tell you that another day. He wrote these tefillin for Dan. And so Dan wanted to get them checked. And oh, by the way, any of you read the book The Prime Ministers by Yehuda Avner?
He's a nephew of the Prime Minister.
Yeah, Yehuda Avner, who wrote that book. It was another great book, by the way. His original name from Manchester was Gubby Hafner, and this Mechel Hafner, who wrote my tefillin, is his nephew. Okay, so
he must have been very good writing the crowns.
Yeah, very good, David. Very good. He happens to be a very good dentist as well, by the way. In any event, Rabbi Herman opened up these tefillin, and Dan's there, like dead nervous, thinking, I hope these are not apostle. They've not been checked for a long time. And anyway, he opens these tefillin and he opens the parsha, and he says, "Wow, wow!" And I said, "Wow, tov or wow ra? Good wow or bad ra? Wow." He said, "Wow, Ezra Yoffin," and he was absolutely bowled over by this beautiful writing in these tefillin. Anyway, I took a little video of him checking the tefillin and saying how beautiful they were, and I sent the video to Mechel's wife, because Mechel is the Luddite of all Luddites and doesn't have a mobile phone. So I sent it to Mrs. Mechel, Debbie, and she showed it to Mechel, and he got a lot of pleasure from this Sofer Stam, Rav Herman, salivating over these beautiful writing. But you look at these tefillin, you look at all these writing, and it's very complicated to be a Sofer Stam, right? You've got to know all the halachot of the tagging and everything. And then you think about it, this is a strange business, all these halachot of these things, because this wasn't even the language that the Torah was given in. It wasn't even the letters that the Torah were given in. It's almost we had a complete reset. Not almost, we did. We had a complete reset of the letters at the time of Ezra. Now, Michael's question is, why can't we do it again? The answer to that is because it came from Ezra, and he answered his own question. It had HaKadosh Baruch Hu's approval. And once that was changed, then the halacha became clear that if you're going to write a Sefer Torah nowadays, you have to write it in Ashurit, you have to write it in this stuff here, and you have to write it with all the fancy bits. Now, of course, there are different minhagim on the tagin and the crowns and all that stuff. A Sephardi ktav, a Sephardi handwriting, is different to an Ashkenazi one. Those of you that know can open a Sefer Torah and say, that's a Sephardi, without knowing it, it's in that fancy case and everything that they use, right? If you just had a piece of parchment, you would know that that was written by a Sephardi sofer, and that was written by an Ashkenazi sofer, because the ktav is different. In the same way as you would be able to see, look at my handwriting and somebody else's, and you'd know, well, that was his and that was his. But it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, but then hold it. If you've got a different, if the Torah for the Sephardis and the Ashkenazis are different, which was the one that was handed down by Hashem?
Both.
Ezra got both of them, did he?
Both. Yeah, both. Yeah, you're not going to catch me out on that one, Michael. Right, so let's just have a look at what went on here. Let's just redo this few lines of Gemarah that we've done, and we'll summarize. So in the first instance, Batchila Nitna Torah, the Torah was given to Israel b'ktav ivri, in the ancient Hebrew script, and in the holy tongue. Chazra, it was given again to them in the time of Ezra, in the Ashurit script, and in Aramaic. But, in brackets, Israel chose to use the Ktav Ashurit, but to not use Lashon Arami in holy writings, but to use Lashon HaKodesh in holy writings, to use Hebrew. Vehinichu lehedyotot Ktav Ivrit u'Lashon Arami. And they left to the hedyotot. What's a hedyot?
Ordinary person. Ordinary.
Yeah, ordinary person. Ordinary person. It's similar to the word idiot. Okay, it's a similar root.
An idiot.
Lehedyotot, so the ordinary people. The ordinary people back in the day used the Ivri script, and they used Lashon Arami. Now, I've got a question for you, and we'll finish with this. The Yisrael chose to use the Ashurit script. That's fair enough. We know that, don't we? Because all our Sifrei Torah, Megillot, etc., Mezuzot are written in Ashurit. But it also says they chose Lashon HaKodesh. They chose Hebrew as a language. Now, various writings are in Hebrew and various writings are in Aramaic. What is in Aramaic, for example?
Ketubah.
Haggadah.
Ketubah.
A ketubah is written in Aramaic. Yes, Jackie, that is true. What else is written in Aramaic?
The Haggadah.
There are little bits of the Haggadah, yes. Ha-lachma anya, Da'achla avata da'ara Israel. That's in Aramaic. There are bits of both in the Haggadah. You're right. What else?
There are some prayers in Aramaic.
There are. We'll come to that later.
Parts of the Gemarah are in Aramaic.
Yeah, the Gemarah. Exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Right. This is all Aramaic, or most of it is Aramaic, right? Why was it written in Aramaic? So people could understand it. What's interesting is, what is the Torah written in?
Hebrew.
What is Tanakh written in?
Hebrew.
Hebrew, says Jeffrey. Is he right? Obviously not, else I won't be asking a question, right? He's nearly right. He's nearly right, because nearly all of Tanakh is written in Hebrew. We're learning Shmuel Bet. What language is that? Hebrew. There are parts, though, of Tanakh which are written in Aramaic. Does anybody know what bits of the Tanakh were written in Aramaic? Let's see. If you don't know, see if you can have a guess, an educated guess, given what we've been speaking about today.
The later books.
Maybe I should like the Hanukkah's not in Tanakh at all.
Yeah. The later books.
Maybe I should leave this as homework. What do you think, folks? Okay, homework. I want to know, without you asking ChatGPT, right? I want you to tell me for next week what parts of Tanakh are not written in Hebrew. That's the homework for today. And then we will carry on with this fascinating subject about the language next week.
Can I ask a question before you go?
Jackie. Yes, Jackie.
While the Hebrews were in Egypt for this 200 years, did they manage to keep their Hebrew language?
Oh, now that's a good question. Now, the Chazal tell us that there were 3 major reasons why the Jews in Egypt merited to be rescued and redeemed. It literally says, in the merit of these 3 things, Bnei Yisrael were redeemed. What were they?
Circumcision.
No, they did not do circumcision while they were in Egypt. How do we know that?
Because Moshe's wife circumcised the boys.
Well, that was before.
They had to do the blood on the doors for them to see who were the Bechorim.
What's that got to do with Brit Milah? Nothing.
We know the firstborn. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
We know they didn't do Brit Milah in Egypt because they all had to do Brit Milah before they could do the Korban Pesach.
Yeah.
Right? You're not allowed to do Brit Milah, to eat the Korban Pesach without. So when it came to it, they
didn't do Brit Milah for 40 years in the wilderness.
That's right. They had to have a mass Brit Milah at the time of Yoshua as well. So no, Brit Milah was not one of the three things. What were the three things?
They kept the Levium.
Okay, that's
I
not
thought
one of the
it was
three
they
things.
named their children with Hebrew names.
Okay, that's one. They didn't change their names.
They kept the language.
They kept the language. That was two. So there's your answer to your question.
Thank you.
And their clothing. Well, see, you did know it, right? The three things were they didn't change their names, they didn't change their clothing, and they didn't change their language. And those three things, if you think about it, are what sets us apart from our surrounding society. It's much easier to assimilate if you are called, I don't know, Matthew, and you wear jeans and a t-shirt and you speak English, than it is if you are called Matisyahu and you wear a bekisher and you speak Yiddish, right? It's much easier to assimilate if you adopt the local tongue, the local names, and the local dress. And so when the Chazal say that it was in the merit of those three things, you can understand that as meaning because they were strong and didn't do those things, God said, you're very good and I'll take you out. Or you could understand it less mystically and more rationally to say, because they didn't do those three things, they didn't fully assimilate. And those that did change their names, those that did change their dress and did change their language were much more likely to have assimilated and not been redeemed. So the answer to your question is, what did they speak in Egypt? They spoke Hebrew.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we go? Okay. Tomorrow, now I've stopped the recording.